Hey gang, Z-Man here. We're back for another episode of Modeler's Corner. So we did a review of the Walther's Mainline GP9 last week, and we saw that it pulled 33 cars. We're going to try to increase that performance by adding a little bit of weight to our locomotive. So the first section of this video after the introduction will be a quick guide on what tractive effort is and how it applies to your model locomotives. The second part, we'll put the weight in. And then the third part, we're going to have a comparison and contrast of the old test versus the new test. So I think you're going to like the results. Stick around and let's go over a quick tutorial of what tractive effort is and what it means for your model locomotives. Tractive effort, in its most basic definition, describes the pulling or pushing capability of a locomotive. The stated tractive effort value for any vehicle can be theoretical, which is calculated from the known mechanical properties or obtained by testing the vehicle under controlled conditions. Theoretically, steel wheels on steel rails is a frictionless surface and should result in the wheels slipping or spinning with no work or forward movement accomplished. One factor that gives locomotives the ability to move rolling stock is the weight, or in this case the adhesive weight of the locomotive itself upon the track. Quite simply, it is the downward force of gravity from the locomotive to the wheels on the track providing an adhesive surface. Traction is therefore defined as friction between the drive member, or in our case, the wheel or wheels, and the surface it moves upon, and again, in our case, the rail. Starting tractive effort is the tractive force that a locomotive can generate from a standstill. Maximum tractive effort is defined as the highest force generated under any condition, generally at low speed, and that does not hurt the locomotive. Continuous tractive effort is the tractive force that can be maintained indefinitely and will differ from starting tractive effort. Tractive effort varies at speed, and at lower speeds will be higher, and at higher speeds it will be lower, showing an inverse relationship. Our model locomotives, including our model steamers, behave like diesel electric or electric locomotives because they have electric traction motors. Because of this, we have a zone of constant tractive effort and a zone of constant power, with tractive effort decreasing with speed. I know this was a very quick discussion about something very complicated, but I don't want this episode to be too long or bore you. Let's apply the principles of tractive effort to increase our pulling capacity of our model locomotives by increasing the weight to increase the adhesive force to the rails in order to pull more cars. Okay, so before we get started, I'd like to thank everybody that has recently subscribed. It really means a lot to me. We've grown the channel quite quickly, and it just inspires me to go do more of these videos. And the response towards the last Modeler's Corner was overwhelmingly positive. You guys really did appreciate the information, and I can only hope that I duplicate that here with this video by helping you try to make your locomotives perform better. All right, let's go add weight to this locomotive. Okay, gang, so here are some things we're going to need for today's project. Number one being the locomotive that we're going to install weight into. We're going to need a screwdriver set in order to disassemble the locomotive and get the shell off. We're going to need some cutting implements. We're going to need some electrical tape so we get our wires back in order. Possibly some glue. This is a must-have. We must have weight, whether you use wheel weights that are a 1/4 ounce or a 1/2 ounce in size. If your locomotive is big enough, you can use car weights, or else you can use any other sort of weight that you have on hand. For me, I'm a reloader, so I've got some 38 caliber bullets. Another must-have is we have to have a scale. We're going to measure the locomotive before and after we've added weight. A little bucket to put our screws in. We may have to measure to make sure that we can fit the weight, so we may need a ruler. And of course, we need some coffee so we can get this project done. So the last thing we need is a soft surface. I do not have a preformed cradle for the locomotive, so I've just quickly ad hoc assembled something of a microfiber towel and this bubble wrap flipped upside down on the level surface so we can disassemble our locomotive without catching on the details and possibly ripping them off. And I have my bucket over here for the screws so we don't lose them. So we're going to start off with the original weight of our locomotive. Let's turn the scale on, wait for it to 0. Put the locomotive on. So we have an original weight of 13.5 ounces. We're going to add some weight as much as we can into the locomotive in order to increase its pulling power. So before we disassemble our locomotive, check the instructions of how to. So I know how to disassemble this locomotive, and it was a little bit different from the instruction sheet. It was not complete because it was written overseas by people who do not speak English as a first language. So I had to figure out how to take this locomotive apart kind of by hand. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the fuel tank. Every locomotive is different. This one is fairly simple to take apart. So with that screw, we're going to put it into that cup. Take off this screw. Put it next to the screw that we just took off. I'm using magnetic screwdrivers. That helps out so you don't lose your screws. The next thing we have to do is take off the couplers. So I'm going to take out our screw, put it in another bucket. Remember, that's the coupler screw. And then we're going to slide out our coupler and put it to the side. Now we're going to take off the next one. Come on, baby. There we go. Put in the same bucket that you have the other screw in. And we can slide out our coupler and put it with the other coupler. So the next set of screws are these underbody screws. This is holding the body to the frame. So we're just going to unscrew those. Put it in our bucket. Grab the other screw. And put that in the bucket. Now we have all the screws taken out for this locomotive to be disassembled. The next part is separating the body from the frame. So next is separating the body from the frame. I'm going to push up a little bit over here, and then we're going to slide the body off and put the body to the side. Now we can see there's not much room to put our weight in. If we look at the body again, we're dealing with a very, very small surface area. This has more to put weight in it. It's a little bit lower. And then down here, it's going to be limited. So because I've already done this with all the locomotives, I know where to put the weight, which is over here by the front of the light and over here by the, by this light over here. So our next step is to uncover the electrical tape. May need a little tool on this so we don't ruin it. I'm going to come up. All right. Now we've got that free. And we're going to see how our weights fit. Like, is this going to fit widthwise? You're going to try to use any weight that you can that fits in there. For me, it will be these 1/4 ounce wheel weights plus 138 caliber bullet. This is what fits for me, so we'll go on to putting the weights in next. So the first weight that we'll put up are 2 1/4 ounce weights. Again, this is trial and error, and you're going to have to see what fits. This fits snugly underneath the wires, and that's about all the room that we're going to have. We're going to put the tape back on, and then we're going to grab a little more electrical tape so we get a good fit on this. This is where our hobby knife comes into play. Now just slice. And I'm going to put this on the side. We don't need as thick a piece. I'm going to cut down the length of the electrical tape because we don't need a piece that wide. Now I'm going to put this here and then come over, and now we got a little excess. So making sure that we're not cutting wires, we're going to cut along the die cast frame and then seal that down. Got a little extra tape, put that over there. Our next place we're going to add weight, we're going to put a 1/4 ounce. So I'm going to grab a fresh 1/4 ounce, separate it, and we're going to move the electrical tape out of the way, being careful of the wires. And this one fits a little bit differently. So if we go across like this, we're going to be too wide. The body may not go back on, so we're actually going to try to fit it lengthwise. Being mindful of the wires, and put that down. I know it fits that way, so the next step that I can do is I can actually take off the tape. This is just a little bit more security so our weight doesn't fall off. A little hard to do in front of the camera. So I'm going to take this off camera, take off the plastic. Alright, got the plastic off with the good old teeth. Now lift up on the wires a little bit, give them a jiggle. And then we're going to seat the weight. And then our last bit of weight up here, I'm going to fit across. This works perfectly for that. And then we're going to take a new piece of electrical tape, seeing how this one's a little worn out. Come around the wires. And come around here. Put that weight there, and we should be secure. The next step is putting the body back on and reassembling. So putting the weights is a bit of trial and error. I tried to get as much as possible, but again, looking at this frame here, I was limited to the space that was available where I could put the weights. So we're going to put the locomotive shell back on the weight same direction that we took it off. Press down from the top. Come up here. So we got to remember the order. So we need these frame screws. Yeah, a little extra magnetism there. So we just need one of those. Get that guided on. Wish I could see this. We'll get this one on first then. Looks like we need to seat the body a little bit more. Guide that into the hole and screw down. Next one. Alright, and that body's tightening back on. Okay, so with the body back on, now we can put the couplers back on. Remember to keep the hoses this way. If you have the hose flipped in the other direction, your coupler's not going to work. This is something I always got to be mindful of, which is to get the couplers back in the right direction. So we just have to keep this together. A little hard to do in the camera because I like to do this close up. Guide that through the slot. Grab a coupler screw. And screw the coupler on. As not to waste time, I will get the other coupler back in off camera, and then we'll get back onto putting putting the fuel tank back on. So with the other coupler installed, the last bit of installation is our fuel tank. Now we're going to put in the fuel tank, grab the fuel tank screws, and with the magnet, grab both of them. Let me get that aligned so. Get the screw in. And then get the other screw in. So with that assembled, you can flip over the locomotive, put it to the side, and then I'm going to remove our padding, and we're going to weigh the locomotive. All right, looks like we're at 14.6 ounces. So we've added 1.1 ounces of weight. So with the weight added to our locomotive, I'm going to put the math of how much we've increased the weight. Let's get this thing on the test track and see if we got an increase of pulling power. Okay, gang, so I made a little bit of a mistake. I actually had an additional 1/4 ounce in the locomotive, so I just took it apart, put the weight back in, and this is to get to the same weight that it was in the review video. So it is now 14.9 ounces. That's roughly 1.3, 1.4 ounces more of additional weight. I'll put up what the percentage increase is. Now we can put this thing on the test track and see what it does. Here's footage from the review pull test at original factory weight. We pulled 8 quadruple weight freight cars that weigh 12 ounces or 340 grams each, plus one standard 3.5 ounce or 99 gram car on flat and level track, which is the equivalent of 33 standard freight cars. While this was acceptable, I wanted more to accommodate for hidden grades, planned grades, and a helix for a future layout. The layout you see here, the Tinaberg test track, is just a practice layout for me. With the additional 1.4 ounces or 39 grams of weight we added, we pulled 9 quadruple weight freight cars plus 2 standard weight freight cars for an equivalent of 38 standard weight freight cars on flat and level track. This represents an increase of 5 cars or a gain of 15.15% in tractive effort. It is my philosophy to operate my locomotives with no more than 66% of maximum pulling capacity. 1, so it looks real, and 2, so I don't cause undue stress on the motors. With the improvement, I can operate 25 freight cars with this locomotive safely. Stick around for some running shots, and if you liked today's video, please like and subscribe.